The first thing Daemon Targaryen tasted was ash. It clung to his tongue and teeth as if he had been chewing on a cinder. He drew a breath that rattled in his chest, and the air was thick with smoke and some bitter incense that stung his eyes. Those same eyes, violet once bright as new-forged steel, scraped open like rusted hinges. The ceiling above him was a vault of black stone, shot through with veins of some dull glowing mineral that pulsed like buried coals. For a heartbeat he thought he was back above the god's eye. Caraxes screamed in the dark, a long tearing howl of rage, and Prince Aemon's sapphire eye burned against the storm. Steel met steel in the sky, chains snapped, wings beat, and there was the rush, the fall, the water rising up with a mouth full of teeth. Daemon jerked, muscles seizing, but the straps across his chest bit into him. His hand flew for Dark Sister by long habit, only to close on empty air. His fingers, once quick and certain, flailed in weakness and found only the cool, pitted surface of the altar. "You return to yourself, Prince of the Black," a voice whispered. The words were in a tongue he should not have known, older than High Valyrian, but they slipped through his mind as if they had been there always. A hooded figure loomed at his side, the lower half of a pale face visible beneath the shadow of the cowl. The lips were painted black. The eyes above them were flat yellow, like old parchment, reflecting the candle flames without warmth. "How long?" Daemon's voice cracked, dry as old parchment itself. He barely recognized it. "Long enough for thrones to rise and fall," the Shadowbinder murmured. "Long enough for dragons to die." Anger flared up in him at that, sudden and irrational, hot enough to chase some of the weakness from his limbs. "Dragons do not die," he rasped. "They are killed. There is a difference." "You have been both," the Shadowbinder said. "Killed and yet not dead. Kept between worlds by the price you paid and the bargains you struck." The hood bent closer. "Do you remember Daemon Targaryen?" He tried. The fall. The impact that never came. A coil of darkness in the water, arms like smoke pulling him down instead of up. A ship whose sails were woven of shadow. A city of black stone that drank the light. Asshai by the shadow, the name came, and with it a taste of fear he did not care for at all. He remembered, too, kneeling before a brazier that burned with colorless flame, offering blood that was his own and blood that was not. The promise he had whispered into that fire. Not to live forever, no. He had never desired the mewling, fretful immortality the maesters feared in their ink scratchings. He had asked only to live long enough to see his house remade. To wipe away the stupidity and softness that had ruined it. "How long?" he asked again, and this time the word tore his throat raw. The Shadowbinder tilted her head. Her hands, gloved in some gray leather that seemed more like skin than skin itself, rested lightly on the straps across his chest. With a slow, almost tender gesture, she undid the buckles one by one. "Rise, Prince," she said. "Walk, feel what remains. Then we shall speak of time." Daemon sat up. The world swayed for a moment and went gray at the edges, but he clenched his teeth and rode it out. His hair fell forward over his shoulders, long and thin, more white than gold now. His body, he looked down, taking stock with a soldier's eye. The hard, coiled muscle he had once worn like armor had thinned. Tendons stood out sharp along his forearms, and the scars that crisscrossed his chest had deepened into pale, ropey knots. Old, then. Old as he had never expected to be. But when he swung his legs over the side of the altar, when his bare feet met the cold stone and he felt the ache climb up through bone and sinew, he also felt something else. The stubborn, furious spark at the core of him still burning. Daemon Targaryen had always been more fire than flesh. Fire did not age. It only consumed. He straightened slowly, and when he stood upright he was still taller than the Shadowbinder by a head. "Very well," he said. "Show me what I have bought." The balcony projected out from the tower like the tongue of some black stone beast, suspended over the river as if daring it to rise and swallow the city whole. The water below moved like oil, viscous and sluggish, reflecting almost nothing of the dim, copper-colored light that passed for day in this place. Daemon gripped the balustrade with both hands, feeling the chill of the stones seep into his skin. The air smelled of salt and rot and the faintest hint of something sweeter, like flowers crushed beneath a boot heel. "Tell it again," he said. The Shadowbinder stood at his shoulder, her own hands hidden in her sleeves. "You are certain your pride can bear it?" "My pride has survived worse than words," Daemon said dryly. "Speak." So she did. She spoke of old Valyria first, not because he did not know its story, but because she wanted him to feel the shape of the tale. The freehold in its glory, dragons wheeling over 100 fires, the 14 flames roaring, the high towers and low alleys, the splendor and the cruelty. Then the doom, which no one could name and no one could describe, only invoke in curses. Mountains exploding, seas boiling, dragons shrieking as they fell burning from the sky. Daemon listened, jaw tight, as he had the first time. Somewhere in the back of his mind, the boy he had been, raised on tales of that lost splendor, wept. The man he was now only ground his teeth. House Targaryen fled before the doom, the Shadowbinder went on. "You know this. They built their new roost on Dragonstone, with its own black stone and smoking mountain. They bred dragons there, and when the moment came they crossed the sea. Aegon the Conqueror," Daemon said. "Visenya, Rhaenys, I wore their blood like armor once." "You wore it like a blade," the woman said. "You were always drawn to conquest." She told him of Aegon's wars, though he could have recited them himself. The field of fire, Harrenhal melted like tallow, the old king on his tall horse, forcing the kneeling of the great lords of Westeros. She spoke of the centuries that followed, kings rising and falling, some wise, many not. His own life, the dance of the dragons, was brushed like a fingertip across a wound, just enough to make him feel it without letting him linger there. Rhaenyra, his niece, his queen, his folly. Her name rose in him like smoke and he swallowed it back down. "And after?" he forced himself to ask. "After my time? Your house devoured itself," the Shadowbinder said simply. "The dragons died. Some of sickness, some of slaughter, some simply wasted away. Your kin grew smaller, softer. One king burned his own people. Another lost his head." Daemon's fingers dug into the stone. Names. Aerys Targaryen II, called the Mad King. Robert Baratheon, who put him down. After the Mad King fell, the last dragons, your kin, Viserys Targaryen and Daenerys Targaryen, were driven into exile across the narrow sea. The names struck him like blows. Viserys, Daenerys. He had never met them, yet they were his own blood all the same, threads in the long, tangled tapestry of his house. To imagine them hunted from their home, turned into beggars and playthings in foreign courts. "And Dragonstone?" he asked, though he knew, somehow, that he would not like the answer. "Given to a proxy," the Shadowbinder said. "Lords with no dragon blood. The last prince, Rhaegar Targaryen, died with his dreams on the trident. The babe in his wife's arms was said to have been smashed against a wall." Daemon exhaled slowly. "Said to have been. Wars make smoke of truth," the woman allowed. "But so the story goes." He watched the river creep along beneath them. Somewhere far beyond that sludgy flow lay seas and straits and, eventually, the cold green waves that lapped at Dragonstone's black shores. For the first time since he had woken, something like grief cut through the numbness. "You kept me," he said quietly. "You and your kind, between life and death. For this. For what you asked," she corrected. "You begged the fire to keep you until your house had risen and fallen, until its enemies were spent and its own weaknesses laid bare. You asked to be the last flame of the old fire, given one more chance to burn a better shape into the world. And this is what remains?" Daemon demanded. "A mad king, a usurper, and 2 children hounded through the gutters?" The Shadowbinder turned her head, looking east rather than west. The light behind the hills was turning from copper to blood. "There is more," she said. "Fire is a greedy thing. It does not stay where men put it. Your house scattered embers everywhere. Some fell in the strangest places. He looked at her sharply. Speak plainly. I will show you, she said, and reached for his hand. Her touch was cold as river stone. The world lurched, and for a heartbeat Daemon thought he was falling again, into the black water of the god's eye. But when his vision steadied, he was still on the balcony. Only the sky had changed. The red dawn had begun to darken, streaks of purple bruising the horizon. Between those streaks something moved. Not clouds, but shapes, pale and flickering, like the memory of wings. Look there, the Shadowbinder whispered, guiding his gaze to a point beyond the horizon. Learn what you have slept to see. The visions had left him shaking, not from fear. Fear had been beaten out of him on battlefields and in the bedchambers of ambitious women long before he had ever seen Asshai. It was something else, a kind of hollowed-out awe at the vast indifference of time. To sleep through kings and wars, to wake to find his line dwindle to a girl and a boy he had never known, tossed about by the whims of fate. It was enough to make any man question the point of all his striving. Daemon responded to such thoughts the way he always had. He found a blade. The training yard lay within the tower's inner court, surrounded by walls of the same greasy black stone. No sun ever truly reached it. The light that slipped down from the low, red sky turned strange between the stones, making men's faces seem flat and their movements a little too slow. Daemon's movements were not slow. His feet scraped across the sanded floor as he pivoted, crooking his left shoulder just enough to let the Sellsword's thrust slide past. Steel whispered against the old leather jerkin someone had scrounged up for him. Daemon's sword, plain castle-forged, sharp but no Valyrian dark, came up in a tight, controlled arc and tapped his opponent's ribs. Dead, he said. The younger man, a wiry fellow from Lys with a badly healed break in his nose, grunted and stepped back, rolling his shoulder. Sweat slicked his hair to his temples. You move like a man half your years, he complained. Daemon offered him a humorless snort. I move like a man who had better things to do than grow fat. They went again. This time the Sellsword came on more cautiously, circling, trying to use reach and youth together. Daemon let him, measuring the cadence of the other man's breathing, the way his weight shifted just before he lunged. His own joints ached. His lungs burned sooner than they would have once. Age had come for him after all, even through sorcery and sleep. But the spine of him, the steel at his core, remained. He had fought on the stepstones with fever burning him. He had charged into Dragonfire with less breath in his chest than this. The Lyseni fainted high, then dropped low, trying to sweep Daemon's leg. Daemon was already moving, stepping in rather than away, letting the flat of his blade smack down on the other sword and twist. For a heartbeat, they were close enough that Daemon could see the flecks of fear in the younger man's eyes. You think too loudly, he said, and drove his shoulder forward. They went down together. Sand bit Daemon's cheek, but his weight pinned the Sellsword's sword hand. He pressed the point of his own blade lightly against the hollow of the man's throat. Dead, he repeated. 7 hells. The Sellsword muttered in his own tongue, wheezing. You're a demon. Daemon pushed himself up, slower than he would have liked, forcing the stiffness from his limbs through sheer spite. Daemon, he corrected. Daemon Targaryen. The Sellsword blinked, not understanding the name. Asshai swallowed tails like stones. Westerosi histories meant nothing here. It was almost refreshing. A shadow slid across the yard. Daemon lifted his head and met the gaze of his oldest companion. Caraxes clung to the obsidian perch like a gargoyle, tail hooked around a broken pillar, wings half spread for balance. The dragon had been the color of fresh spilled blood when Daemon first claimed him, sleek and terrible. Now his scales had darkened toward rust, many of them missing or cracked. One eye had clouded to a filmed over white, the lid scarred where some ancient wound had never quite healed. The other eye burned as fiercely as ever, a molten orange slit that tracked Daemon's every movement. You've grown ugly, Daemon told him. Caraxes answered with a low, warbling hiss that rattled the shields stacked along the wall. The Sellsword flinched and crossed himself with some eastern token. Daemon sheathed the practiced blade and walked across the yard, every step an argument with his complaining knees. He rested one hand on Caraxes' muzzle, just above the fretted scar that ran from eye to nostril. The dragon's breath washed over him, hot and rank with old meat. Beneath his palm, immense muscles shifted. "They killed our kind old friend," Daemon murmured in High Valyrian. "Hunted them, starved them, locked them in cellars until they forgot how to fly. Our house squandered what it was given, again and again, until the world took it from us." Caraxes snorted, a little plume of smoke curling from his nostrils. "But there are still dragons," Daemon went on. "I have seen them, not in flesh, not yet, but in flame. Little ones barely out of the shell, and bigger dragons, the ones who will ride them." He thought of the girl in the fire the Shadowbinder had shown him. Daenerys Targaryen, hair like pale moonlight, eyes wide with terror and something too fierce to be fear alone as she walked into her husband's pyre. The way she had emerged, skin unmarked, 3 stunted, shrieking creatures clinging to her like hungry children. And beyond that, in a colder vision, a boy in black furs, snow blowing around him. Dark hair, gray eyes, a sword he wore like part of himself, a direwolf's shadow at his heel, an ember in the snow. "The world thinks our tale ended when their usurper broke our line," Daemon told Caraxes softly. "It did not. It merely went north and east. The dragon's eye narrowed." "We are going west, Caraxes," Daemon said. "We are going home." The dock groaned beneath the combined weight of dragon and men. Asshai's harbor was a forest of masts and gray sails, ships from 100 strange lands lying low in the water as if trying to make themselves smaller, harder for the city to notice. The river met the sea here in a sluggish mingling of black and green. Even the gulls wheeled wide of the place, crying their resentment. Daemon stood at the foot of the gangplank, cloak snapping around his calves in the sour wind. The captain facing him was a tall woman from Ibn, broad-shouldered and barrel-chested, with little tusks peeking from her lower lip and a net of gold rings braided into her beard. She eyed Daemon the way one might eye an unusually truculent storm. "You want passage west," she said in gruff, heavily accented Valyrian. "You bring a demon lizard onto my decks. You pay triple." Behind her, the crew shifted uneasily, keeping one eye on Caraxes, who lay curled along the dock like a coil of rusted chain. His wings were folded tight to his sides, but the slow, impatient flex of his talons sent splinters flying from the wood. Daemon smiled thinly. "Triple the usual for a man," he allowed. "But I am not usual." "I can see that," the captain said dryly. "You are mad. Mad men don't have this." He opened his hand. The jewel lay on his palm like a drop of frozen blood, catching what little light there was and turning it into something richer. It was no larger than the end of his thumb, but it had been cut with a craftsman's devotion. He had taken it once from the neck of a Volantine magister whose arrogance had offended him, in a time before he had known how little such trophies mattered. The captain's eyes widened despite herself. "You sail to Volantis, Cohor, Bravo's old town," Daemon said. "Beyond that, you take us to Dragonstone. You will have no trouble with pirates. They fear dragonfire more than kings. You will have no trouble with storms, if your gods are kind. When we land, this is yours. Until then, it is mine." He closed his fingers over the jewel. The captain's gaze flicked from his hand to Caraxes and back. Greed and dread wrestled briefly on her face. Greed, as it usually did, won. "You sleep on the foredeck," she said. "You and the beast. If he shits on my planks, you scrape it yourself, Prince." Daemon almost laughed, felt strange in his chest, like something cracking. "Agreed." He turned to the men behind him. 7 in all, his little company. The Lyseni Sellsword from the yard, a sallow-faced archer from ET who had once tried to rob him and been persuaded that service was better than death. A pair of Carthene brothers who had lost their caravan and their patience with their own merchants. An exiled Bravosi Bravo with a carved wooden coin sewn into his collar. 2 others, nameless in his mind as yet, but not unvalued. "You've heard her terms," he told them. "If any of you would rather remain in this corpse of a city, speak now." They did not, though one of the nameless ones, a boy really, no older than 17, swallowed hard as Caraxes' tail thumped impatiently against the dock. "Good," Daemon said. "Then we sail." He mounted the gangplank first, placing his feet carefully. The wood bowed and creaked beneath his weight. Behind him, his men followed, boots thudding, gear clinking. Last came Caraxes. The dragon moved with unnerving delicacy, claws finding every place on the dock that would bear him. When he set one foreclaw on the gangplank, the entire ship moaned, ropes straining, mast swaying. Sailors shouted and grabbed for lines. "Easy," Daemon called back over his shoulder in Valyrian. "You have cheated death longer than most kings. Do not let a rotten piece of would be your undoing." Caraxes rumbled something that might have been contempt and flowed up onto the deck, his long body coiling around the foremast. The ship sagged under the new burden, then found its balance, creaking. The captain barked orders. Lines were cast off, sails unfurled, the stink of the harbor shifting as they began to move out into the open sea. Daemon went to the prow and braced his hands on the rail. Somewhere beyond this gray waste lay Volantis, with its tiger princes and its red priests. Somewhere beyond that lay Pentos and Bravos and the narrow sea. Beyond that, the green, familiar waters of Blackwater Bay, the dark teeth of Dragonstone, the long, cold arm of the north reaching down toward civilization. He could almost smell it, the chill of Wolfswood pines, the smoke from Winterfell's hot springs, the iron tang of the trident. His home, and yet no longer his, a realm that had forgotten him, ruled and ruined by men who did not know his name. "I am coming," he said softly to the wind, to the usurper's line, to the scattered remnants of his own blood. "Make ready." The cabin smelled of pitch and wet wood. The ship's timbers creaked and sighed around him like an old woman in her sleep. Water slapped against the hull in slow, measured strokes. Daemon sat cross-legged on the floor, the motion of the sea rolling through him. Before him, the brazier the Shadowbinder had given him glowed with a steady, unnatural heat. Its coals did not seem to burn down. They were as full and red now as they had been when he had taken the thing from her hands on the dock. "Fire answers fire," she had said. "Blood answers blood. You will not always like what you see." He had never been one to turn away from an ugly truth. Daemon extended his left hand over the brazier and opened the small cut he had made there, squeezing a few drops of blood into the coals. They hissed greedily. The flame shifted, flaring higher, the yellow giving way to a pallid, ghostly blue, then deepening toward orange again. Shapes formed. At first they were nothing but smears of color, impressions of motion. Then the smoke cleared, and he saw her again as he had in Asshai's balcony sky. Daenerys Targaryen stood in the heart of a great funeral pyre. The logs had collapsed inward, sending up waves of sparks. The body laid upon them, massive, scarred, crowned in braided hair and bells, had burned down to blackened bone. Heat rippled in the air, warping the world around her. She should have been ash. Instead, she walked free. Her hair was gone, burned away, leaving her scalp smooth and pale. Her skin shone with sweat and soot, but it was whole, unmarked. In her arms and on her shoulders clung 3 tiny, ugly things, all ribs and wings and shrieking mouths. Dragons, and yet not. They were hatchlings, scrawny as alley cats, but the sound of their cries drew every hair on Daemon's neck to attention. Around the pyre knelt a sea of dark faces. Dothraki, he guessed, from the braids and the rings, though these looked more ragged than the proud riders he remembered from tales. Men who thought only of horses now bowed their heads to a woman crowned in smoke and newborn fire. "She thinks she is alone," the Shadowbinder's voice murmured in his memory. "The last, the end." Daemon watched the girl. No, the woman. She carried herself like one, despite her years, raise her hand to stroke the snout of the largest dragonling. It craned its neck, rubbing its scaled head against her fingers with something like devotion. Not the end, he thought. The beginning. He should have felt something warmer than he did. Pride, perhaps, at the sight of his house's fire rekindled. Instead, he felt the familiar tightness of calculation coil behind his ribs. Daenerys Targaryen was a marvel. She was also a threat in the simplest, truest sense of the word. A dragon who did not know she was but one head of the beast. "What would you make of me, little niece?" he asked the flame softly. "Am I your ally? Your rival? Your ruin?" The vision did not answer. It shifted, smoke folding over smoke, and when it cleared, the scene had changed. A new boy stood in the fire. Snow. It fell in the brazier fire, impossible and utterly real, white flakes drifting past Daemon's face without melting. They vanished the instant they touched the floorboards, leaving no damp behind. The vision had shifted north. He knew it as surely as he knew his own name, though he had never stood where he stood now, atop a wall of ice that seemed to cut the world in two. The boy at the vision's center wore black. The cloak wrapped around his shoulders was thick, the fur at its collar stiff with frost. The breast of his surcoat bore a device Daemon recognized from old tales, the black crow of the Night's Watch. His hair was dark, almost black itself, curls whipped about by the bitter wind that tore across the ice. He had the look of a Stark. The thought came before Daemon could stop it. The boy's face held that Northman stubbornness, the long planes and strong jaw he had seen in 100 wolf-blooded lords and ladies over council tables. But the eyes, gray he thought at first. Then the flame shifted, and something in them caught the light in a way that made his breath catch. Not purple, not like his own, but there was a depth there he knew, a weight, a sorrow too old for such a young face. Below the boy, the world fell away into darkness. The wall. This had to be the wall. The vast fortress of Ice Aegon had flown above when he first surveyed his new kingdom, dropped sheer into a black gulf. Torches burned along its top in feeble, flickering lines. Far below, at its base, Daemon could just make out structures. A gate, a courtyard, wooden buildings huddled together as if for warmth. "Who are you?" Daemon murmured. The boy turned his head, as if he had heard something. Wind pulled at his cloak. Snow stuck in his hair. At his side, the pale shape of the dire wolf lifted its head, red eyes glimmering. Ghost, Daemon thought, recalling the Stark words. Winter is coming. Beyond the wall, in the far distance, something moved. The flame blurred when he tried to look directly at it, but he felt the wrongness of it deep in his bones. A cold that had nothing to do with wind or weather. "There are other fires than yours, dragon," the Shadowbinder had said on the balcony. "Other powers. The world is not just your house's stage." Daemon watched the boy in black square his shoulders and stare into that creeping dark as if daring it to come closer. "A Stark, then," he said. "Or some bastard cousin." The thought unsettled him for reasons he could not entirely name. A dragon's fire and northern ice had danced together before. Targaryen kings had taken wolf brides, forging bonds of convenience and ambition. But there was something about this boy, this Jon Snow. That name floated up from the coals now, unbidden. That rang in his blood like a struck bell. Snow. Yet when he imagined the lad's flesh, he did not see pale northern skin alone. He saw fire moving beneath it, banked but not extinguished. "Ember in the snow," he said again. "I see you." The vision did not reply. It rarely did. The flames surged, and the wall vanished, replaced by a roil of color and smoke that meant the fire had given him all it would for now. Daemon let his hand fall to his knee. The ship rolled as a wave struck it broadside. He swayed with the motion, as used to a deck under his feet as he was to the shifting back of a dragon. The cabin walls pressed close around him. 3 dragons hatched in the east, an ember boy on the wall, a realm that had cast his house aside and set a stag upon the throne, an enemy beyond the wall that made all mortal crowns look like toys. "Very well," he murmured to the dying fire. "You have shown me the pieces. I will decide how the game is played." The narrow sea lived up to none of its names. There was nothing narrow about the waves that reared up to batter the ship, nor the sky that arched above them, a bruised dome split by jagged veins of lightning. Rain lashed down in hard, slanting sheets, needling Daemon's face and soaking his cloak until it clung to him like a second, colder skin. He stood at the prow regardless, legs braced, one hand locked around the rail. "Below, you old fool!" The Ibonese captain roared from the quarterdeck, her beard plastered against her neck by the rain. "You'll be washed overboard." Daemon bared his teeth at her, uncowed. "You forget, Captain," he shouted back. "I have fallen from higher places than this." Above the crash of wind and water came another sound, a drawn-out scream that was almost song. Caraxes rode the storm. The dragon skimmed low over the waves, wings beating in long, powerful strokes that sent spray flying. Lightning flashed, bleaching his rust-red scales to bloodless white for an instant. His long neck undulated, the twisted shape that had earned him the name Eddard Stark against the darkness. He should not have been flying in such weather. Age stiffened dragons as it did men, and the winds could tear a wing from its socket as easily as they could snap a mast. But Caraxes had never been docile. His joy in war, in danger, in any excuse to scream defiance at the sky had always matched Daemon's own. Now, as the storm tried its best to grind them all to splinters, Daemon felt something like contentment push through his sour mood. This, at least, was familiar. He narrowed his eyes, peering past the sheet of rain. There, when the ship rode a crest, he could see a darker smear on the edge of sight, the hint of land. Westeros, still distant, but closer with every shuddering lurch of the hull. He thought of the girl in the fire again, of Daenerys Targaryen somewhere under a warmer sky, maybe even now teaching her little dragons to flame pigs and goats, of Jon Snow on the wall, wind cutting his cheeks, staring down a darkness only he could truly see. They did not know he was coming. That was an advantage, and Daemon had never been one to waste such gifts. He would not go first to the girl in the east. She had dragons of her own, true, but she had no roots in the soil of Westeros yet, no ties binding her to its lords and small folk. A conqueror who appeared from over the sea with foreign hordes at her back. He knew how that story was told. Aegon had won it only because the world had never seen dragons before. Now they had seen worse besides. A girl with fire alone would not be enough. No, he would go north, to the boy on the wall or near enough to him. To the wolves who had once bent the knee to Targaryen kings and found the bargain not entirely to their liking. To a place where winter and fire might yet be coaxed into alliance. "Stubborn creatures," he murmured, watching the lightning dance. Starks and Targaryens both. Proud, prone to folly, quick to love and quicker to hate. He thought of Rhaenyra again against his will. Of the way she had smiled at him in the Red Keep's shadowed halls when she was still just a girl and he was already imagining crowns. Of the way that same smile had tightened years later, when she realized what his love truly was and where it would lead them. "I will not make the same mistakes," he told the wind, the sea, the dragon, perhaps himself. Caraxes answered with another scream, as if mocking the very idea of learning from the past. The ship plunged down the far side of a wave, spray exploding over the bow, drenching Daemon anew. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat, letting the water scour his face. When he opened them again, he could swear the land on the horizon had grown a little clearer. "Soon," he told it. "Soon, Westeros. Let us see what you have become without me." The storm burned itself out by degrees. By the time full dark settled, the sea had smoothed to a slow, heaving roll. The ship's timbers no longer screamed with every gust, only muttered. The crew moved with the careful, exhausted efficiency of people who knew better than to trust a calm so soon after a rage. Daemon went below. The hold was a cramped space, filled with barrels of salt pork and casks of cheap wine, sacks of grain and boxes banded in corroded metal. The air was thick with the smells of mold and brine and the sour tang of unwashed men. A lantern hung from a beam, its flame guttering as the ship rocked. He had claimed a corner for himself, more because the others had been too wary to come near than because he had any particular right to it. A coil of rope served as his pillow when he bothered to sleep. Tonight he sat on an overturned crate, elbows on knees, the dragon sigil ring turning slowly between his fingers. He had taken the ring from his brother Viserys' corpse once, all those long years ago, when they still believed such tokens meant something. He had lost it and found it again twice since. Now it was worn smooth with handling, the 3 heads of the dragon almost indistinct. The map pinned to the bulkhead was crude. Some dockside scribe in Asshai had sketched it from older, better copies, never having seen Westeros himself. Even so, the shape of it tugged at Daemon's chest. The jutting promontory of Dorne, the fat bulge of the Reach, the spidery fingers of the Riverlands reaching up toward the neck, the sword-hilt spine of the north, with the island of Skagos like a broken tooth off its edge. Dragonstone, a little blot just off the eastern coast, marked with the same 3-headed sigil that adorned his ring. And there, up at the very top, a line. The wall. He traced it with a fingertip. "What are you?" he asked the memory of the boy in black. "Bastard, certainly. Stark, almost surely. But there is something else there, Jon Snow. Something that smells of my own house's folly." He had pressed the Shadowbinder for more when she first showed him the visions. "Whose son?" he had demanded, the words sharper than he'd intended. "Do not play coy with me. This is some trick of yours, some sorcerer's mummery." "We are not the only ones who play at mummery," she had replied. "Ask your own house's history if it likes its bastards properly named. The boy is ice and fire both. That is all you need know." It was not, of course. Daemon had never been content with half-knowing anything. A boy of the Night's Watch, wearing Stark's face and some secret ember of Targaryen heat besides. If that was not a lever to move Westeros, nothing was. He leaned back against the creaking wall and closed his eyes. Memory came despite himself. Rhaenyra on Dragonstone's battlements, hair whipped by the sea wind, eyes bright with fury and longing. "It should have been simpler," she had said once, when they were still young enough to think the world might round its corners for them. "My father should name me and be done with it. Or he should take a son from you, uncle, if he will not trust a woman." "And which of those choices would you prefer?" he had asked, amused. She had smiled then, that quick, conspiratorial flash that made him feel as if they were the only 2 real people in a court full of painted dolls. "Both, of course. I have never seen why the world should not give me all I desire." He had loved her for that in his own twisted way. Loved that she wanted so much, that she would reach for it with both hands rather than wait for it to be offered. He had also helped destroy her. Daemon opened his eyes to the dim, swinging lantern and the crude map. "I will not make the same mistakes," he said again. The words sounded thin in the hold, but he forced them out regardless. "If there is a way to bind these new dragons, east and north, without burning half the world to do it, I will find it. And if there is not," the part of him that had always delighted in chaos whispered, "then I will choose my fire and let the rest of them choke on the smoke." He did not say that part aloud. He turned the ring once more, then pushed himself to his feet, joints popping. Above, the ship creaked. A man laughed, short and sharp. Somewhere distant, Caraxes rumbled, the sound like stone grinding against stone. "Soon," Daemon murmured, "soon we will see whose blood still remembers how to burn." The first sight of Westeros came with the dawn. The storm had spent itself in the night, leaving behind a sky washed clean to a pale, hard blue. The wind was knife-cold, but steady. The captain had woken him with a shove and a grunt, jerking her thumb toward the ladder. "Your land," she had said. "Come see how it looks before you burn it." Daemon had snorted at that and gone up, heart a slow, heavy drum in his chest. The coast rose from the sea like the back of some sleeping beast. Cliffs of dark stone veined with quartz, patches of scrubby grass clinging to their tops, pines marching down toward the edge in ragged ranks. Here and there, the cliffs fell away into stony beaches where waves chewed at the shore. "North," he said, tasting the word. The air was different here, sharper, cleaner. Even the light felt thinner, as if the sun were already tired from something it had not yet done. He did not bother asking the captain's leave this time. Caraxes met him at the bow like a phantom drawn from his thoughts. The dragon dropped from the sky in a long, slanting glide, wings half-folded, tail lashing. Sailors cursed and scattered as his shadow swallowed the deck. "Try not to sink her," Daemon told him in Valyrian, slinging himself up onto the familiar curve of the neck. The saddle and chains had long since been lost. He rode bareback now, trusting in old skill and older bonds. Caraxes shifted, adjusting his balance under the new weight. "Go," Daemon said, and the dragon needed no further encouragement. They surged skyward, leaving the ship bucking in their wake. Air knifed past Daemon's face, tearing tears from his eyes that froze almost as soon as they formed. His hands, gripping the ridge of bone along Caraxes' neck, went numb within heartbeats. It did not matter. For the first time since he had woken on the Black Altar, he felt entirely himself. They broke through a band of low cloud, and then they were above it all, the world spread out like a map. To the west, inland, he could see the dark smudge of forest. Wolfswood, he guessed, though it had been little more than a story to him before. Southward, the land curved away, hinting at other shores he could not yet name from this height. Beneath them, on the edge of a gray strip of beach, a cluster of buildings huddled around a crooked pier. Smoke rose from one or two chimneys, straight in the still air. The first scream from below was faint, lost in the rush of wind. The second came sharper, someone's voice cracking on a prayer. Daemon looked down and saw them. Fisherfolk by their clothes and their boats. Tiny from this distance, but their gestures needed no magnification. Some pointed with rigid arms. Others fell to their knees. One man raised a spear, purely on reflex, as if he might hope to skewer the dragon from the ground. "Still afraid," Daemon murmured, words whipped away. "Good. Fear is a language every kingdom understands." Caraxes tipped one wing, circling. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to give the beast his head, to let him dive, scream, scour the village with flame, to carve his coming into the coastline so deeply that word of it would outrun any ship or raven. Daemon did not. "Not yet," he said, leaning close, voice firm. "No fire," Caraxes hissed, disgruntled, but leveled out. "We are not here to conquer fishermen," Daemon went on. "We are here for wolves and kings and the ghosts on the wall. The rest will fear us enough without a pile of charred corpses to remind them." He angled the dragon inland. The land unrolled beneath them. Patches of thin, frosted grass, frozen streams glinting like broken glass, the occasional scatter of trees. Once, far below, a line of riders moved along a half-buried road, cloaks pulled tight around their throats. One horse shied as Caraxes' shadow passed over them, and one of the tiny figures made a hurried sign against evil. Daemon felt a grim satisfaction. "They do not know your name," he told Caraxes. "They do not remember mine, but they remember the shape of you. That will do." He had no precise map for this part of the world, no neat progression of leagues marked between landmarks. He navigated by instinct and half-remembered tales, angling toward where he thought Winterfell lay. A knot in the north, a place where hot springs steamed against the cold and ancient kings slept beneath stone. As the sun climbed, the land changed. Trees thickened, pines giving way to oaks and beeches. The snow on the ground deepened, unbroken save for the occasional track of some beast or band of men. Smoke smudges on the horizon marked scattered holdfasts and crofters' cottages. Finally, ahead he saw it. Winterfell rose from the forest like something grown rather than built. Its walls were not smooth and pale like the high towers, nor black and sharp as dragonstones. They were rough-hewn gray stone, patched and mended and layered over so many times that no man could have said where the first course lay. Smoke curled from a dozen chimneys, carrying with it the smell of wood and meat and some faint mineral tang. Even from the air, Daemon could see where the hot springs came up from the bones of the earth. Steam clung to the inner courtyards, turning them into little pockets of ghostly fog. The Godswood within the walls was a dark, dense knot of branches, its heart tree's pale crown just visible. He had Caraxes set down in the Wolfswood, out of sight of the castle proper. The dragon landed with an impact that shook snow from the branches. Birds exploded from the trees in a black, shrieking cloud. Caraxes folded himself down among the trunks with ill grace, his long body winding between them. Against the dark, he was almost invisible. "Stay," Daemon told him, as if he were some great, murderous hound. "If you hear screams, wait. If you hear steel, wait. If you smell fire—" He paused, then smiled to himself. "If you smell fire, that will likely be your doing. Try not to eat any Starks without my leave." Caraxes rumbled, the sound low and dubious. Daemon laid a hand briefly on the rough scales of the dragon's jaw, then turned and walked toward Winterfell. The snow was not deep yet, barely up to his ankles, but it crunched under his boots in a way that set his teeth on edge. He had grown used to the soft sand of Essos courts, the slick, steaming stones of Asshai streets. This felt like walking on broken glass. The main road to the castle cut through the trees, a packed trail of dirt and ice. As he approached the outer gate, 2 guards in thick cloaks stepped forward, spears lowered. "Halt," one called. His breath steamed in the air. Beneath the edge of his helm, his beard was crusted with frost. "State your name and business." Daemon had considered a dozen answers on the flight over. He could give his true name and watch them laugh, take him for a madman. He could claim to be some Essos lord come to sell trinkets and horses. He could brandish Caraxes like a calling card and see how long it took for half the north to take up arms. In the end, he chose a simpler path. "Ser Daemon Waters," he said, dipping his head enough to be polite without suggesting deference. "A knight of no great renown. I seek the hospitality of Winterfell before I ride onto the wall and take the black." The lie tasted strange, but not entirely false. He wanted to see the wall, to see the boy he had glimpsed in the fire. Taking the black was hardly his intention, but the North did not need to know that yet. The guards exchanged a look. "Plenty o' men ride north to take the black," the second one said, skepticism roughening his voice. "Few of them look like you, sir. Where's your horse?" "Died in the storm 3 days past," Daemon said smoothly. "I walked the rest. I should like to warm my feet before I march the rest of the way to freeze them off entirely." He offered them a smile, showing just a hint of teeth. The first guard snorted, not entirely charmed but not wholly put off either. "You'll have to speak with Lord Eddard Stark steward," he said. "We're no ones to give guest right, but we're not so mean as to keep a man from a fire." They stood aside, spears lifting. Winterfell's gate yawned before him, its portcullis raised, the heavy oak doors open. Beyond lay a tunnel of stone, cut through the thickness of the wall. Warmth brushed his face as he stepped under the arch, the breath of the hot springs that crisscrossed the castle like hidden veins. For the first time since he had woken on the black altar in Asshai, Daemon Targaryen walked into a hall of men who had never heard his name. He drew his cloak a little tighter around himself, hiding the flash of old scars at his throat, and smiled. Let them see a weary knight, he thought. Let them feed him, warm him, let them speak freely in his presence. Winterfell was a fortress, but every fortress had its loose stones. Daemon had come to pull at them, one by one, until the whole edifice of the world shifted to make room for his plans. The heat of the great hall hit Daemon like a wave. After the sharp bite of the courtyard air, the warmth inside felt almost indecent. Fires roared in twin hearths at either end of the long chamber, throwing light over banners and faces alike. The gray stone of Winterfell's bones softened in the glow, picking up the reds and golds of the crackling logs. Daemon paused just inside the threshold, letting the door thud shut behind him. Eyes turned. Men with cheeks reddened by ale and firelight, boys with uncombed hair, servants bearing trenchers and pitchers. All glanced up, weighed him in a heartbeat, and then, having seen nothing to threaten their skins, turned back to their cups. Not all. At the far end of the hall, on the raised dais, Eddard Stark watched him. The Lord of Winterfell wore wool and leather rather than silk and velvet. The only concession to ornament was the simple silver clasp at his breast, shaped like a direwolf's head. His dark hair was threaded with the first lines of gray, his beard neatly trimmed. He had a Northman's heaviness about the brow, but his eyes were quick and cool, missing nothing. Daemon felt the weight of that gaze and allowed himself a small spark of respect. Here, at least, was a man who understood the value of silence. Beside Eddard Stark sat his lady, Catelyn Stark. Tully, by her coloring, held herself very straight. Her auburn hair was pinned back under a modest cap, her blue eyes watchful. If her husband's regard measured danger, hers measured trouble. She assessed him the way a woman with children judges a new dog brought into the yard. Could it bite? And if so, how hard? Good, Daemon thought. Let them all look. Let them decide what I am. A small man with a pointed gray beard approached him, robes rustling. Maester, Daemon guessed, from the chain at his throat, each loop a different metal. Welcome to Winterfell, sire, the Maester said, inclining his head. I am Maester Luwin. You told the guards you seek guest right and intend for the wall. For the black, Daemon said, pitching his voice to the weary deference of a man long on the road and short on coin. If your lord will grant me bread and salt, I will trouble him no further than a night and a morning. Bread and salt you shall have. Luwin's eyes crinkled in a way that suggested both kindness and the capacity not to trust it. Lord Eddard Stark is not a man to turn away those who wish to take the black. Has he so many men he can spare them? Daemon asked lightly. Too few, some might say, the Maester replied. Too many, say their mothers. He gestured, and a steward, thin, spectacled, with ink stains on his fingers, stepped forward bearing a trencher on which lay a crust of bread and a small dish of salt. Daemon took a pinch of salt, sprinkled it over the bread, and bit off a mouthful, letting them all see him swallow. Guessed right. Even in this hard land, some oaths remained unbroken. Eddard Stark rose. The hall's low murmur dimmed as he stepped down from the dais. He moved with the unhurried assurance of a man who had no need to hurry. His people would make way for him because they could not conceive of doing otherwise. As he approached, Daemon let his shoulders sag a little, let his age show. A weary hedge knight, nothing more. Sir Demian Waters, he said when the lord was close enough to hear him clearly. At your service, my lord. Be welcome under my roof, Sir Demian, Eddard Stark said. His voice was calm and deep, the vowels flattened by the north. You will share our meat and mead tonight. In the morning, if you still wish it, I will give you an escort to the King's Road and any letter you require to present at Castle Black. I ask only a place by your fire, Daemon demurred, and perhaps leave to see your yard. A man ought to know the measure of his sword before he goes to take the black. That drew the faintest flicker at the corner of Stark's mouth. You will find the yard full of boys eager to prove themselves. Try not to break them. Behind Stark, Daemon caught a glimpse of the table on the dais. Lady Catelyn watched their exchange intently. Beside her sat a broad-shouldered youth with her coloring and Stark's height, Robb, presumably. Next to him, a boy with dark curls and a restless, inward-turned gaze, his seat half a step lower than the trueborn son's. Jon Snow. Daemon let his eyes skim over him, not lingering. There was time yet. First the father, then the son. Come, Eddard Stark said. Eat, Sir Demian. Winterfell is no true host without a full belly and an honest tale. Tales I have in plenty, Daemon said. Honesty is rarer coin, but I will see what I can spare. The yard rang with the sound of wood on wood. Morning had broken gray and cold, a thin crust of frost filming the flagstones. Breath plumed from men and boys alike as they moved through drills, the clack of practice blades sharp against the low murmur of instruction. Daemon stood beneath a stone arch, the chill dripping down from the blocks above into his shoulders. He had refused a fur-lined cloak when one of the servants shyly offered it. Cold reminded him that he was no longer in Asshai's stagnant warmth. Besides, he wanted to feel the North's teeth. "You favor the boy in black," the steward, Pool, if Daemon recalled the maester's introduction correctly, had said as he led him down. "Jon Snow, Lord Eddard Stark's bastard." Daemon had finished for him mildly. "So I gathered." Now he watched the bastard in question circle his half-brother. Robb Stark had the look of the young wolf he would someday be called. Broadening shoulders, long limbs still not entirely under his command. He was exuberant, the way boys with loving fathers often were, throwing his weight behind every swing. His hair, dark copper like his mother's, curled damply at his brow. Jon Snow was leaner. He moved as if he were not entirely certain he deserved the space his body took up and was determined not to waste any of it. His strikes were smaller, tighter, less showy. When Robb lunged with an overhand smack that would have rattled an opponent's teeth but left his own guard wide open, Jon slipped aside, wooden blade darting to tap his ribs. "Again," Jon said. His tone was flat, but there was a spark in his eyes. "You're dead?" Robb protested, laughing, rubbing his side. "Admit it. In a real fight you wouldn't be laughing," came a dry voice. Theon Greyjoy lounged against a post, arms crossed, gray eyes amused. He was all edges and arrogance, that one, with a smirk that begged to be knocked sideways. Daemon had known a dozen like him in his life, half hostage, half prince. "In a real fight, I'd have a real sword," Robb shot back. "And a real corpse if you leave your side open like that," Daemon said. The words slipped out before he'd quite decided to speak. Heads turned toward the shadowed arch. Robb straightened, cheeks flushing higher than mere exertion could explain. Jon's gaze flicked to Daemon's face, quick and assessing. "My lord, sire," Robb corrected, remembering. "You think you can do better?" "I think you can," Daemon replied. He stepped down into the yard, boots whispering over frozen ground. "If you stop swinging like you're trying to impress the nearest maid." Arya Stark, perched on a low wall nearby with legs swinging, snorted aloud. Catelyn Stark's daughter she might be, but there was too much wildness in the way she grinned not to be a Stark through and through. Robb's flush deepened. "I fight as Ser Rodrik teaches," he said stiffly. "Ser Rodrik does what he can with what he's given," Daemon said. "He taught you to hold a sword and not cut off your own foot with it. That is no small thing. But if you want to live when someone who truly means you harm stands across from you, you must learn something more." He looked to Jon Snow. "You at least have the right idea," he said. "Smaller, quicker motions. You think of defense as well as attack." "Who taught you?" "Ser Rodrik," Jon said warily. "Same as Robb." "Then you listened where your brother only heard," Daemon said. "Come." He held out a hand to the weapons rack. A boy hurried to place a practice blade in it. Daemon wrapped his fingers around the worn wood, testing its balance. Felt clumsy after a life with steel, but weight was weight. "Which of you will show me what you've learned?" he asked. Robb stepped forward immediately, pride bristling. Jon hesitated for a heartbeat, then moved to join him. "Both of you then?" Daemon said, amused. "Why not? The world will not line up one enemy at a time just because you ask nicely." The boys exchanged a look. Jon's mouth tightened, but he nodded. "Come," Daemon said again. They did. The first flurry was all bluster. Robb launched himself at Daemon with the headlong enthusiasm of youth, shouting as he swung. Jon hung back half a step, trying to flank. Daemon's body remembered more battles than these boys had had years. He shifted, let Robb's blow glance off his own blade, turned with it, and let the younger Stark's momentum carry him past. "Guard," he said, tapping the boy's exposed shoulder. Robb stumbled, corrected, cheeks flaming. Jon slid in quick. His wooden blade snapped forward in a neat thrust aimed at Daemon's chest. That was better, less wasted motion. Still, his feet betrayed him, the slightest hitch in his step as he committed. Daemon twisted, let the thrust slide past his ribs, and stepped into Jon's guard. A quick flick of his wrist disarmed the boy neatly, sending the practiced sword skittering across the yard. "Your hands move faster than your thoughts," he said. "That will get you killed. Think first, then swing." Jon's eyes flashed. He did not argue, to his credit. He stooped, retrieved the blade, and moved back into position. "Again," Daemon said. They came again, and again. Each time he corrected, not gently, but not with the cruelty some masters used to break students. He did not want them broken. He wanted to see what lay underneath the pride and the name and the bastard's shame. After a time, their movements grew more economical. Robb began to watch as well as react. Jon's footwork smoothed, the little stutter slipping away. Ghost watched from the yard's edge. The dire wolf was larger than any hound Daemon had ever seen. Its fur so white it seemed almost to glow against the gray stone and dirty snow. Its red eyes tracked his every move. Once, when Jon stumbled, Ghost took a step forward, lips peeling back over his teeth, as if prepared to lunge at the man who had unbalanced his master. Daemon met that gaze and felt a curious recognition. "Good," he said at last, lowering his sword. His breath steamed in the cold air, but his chest rose and fell steadily. "You learn. That may save you when the world stops being a yard." Robb grinned, sweaty and pleased. Jon only nodded, lips pressed together, dark curls sticking damply to his forehead. "What did you do, sire, before you took the road north?" Jon asked abruptly. "You fight like the stories." Daemon raised a brow. "Which stories?" "The old ones," Bran piped up from the wall, eyes wide. "Of knights in black and red, and dragons over the Blackwater, and—" "Bran," Robb warned. Daemon smiled faintly. "Once, long ago, I rode in wars that are dust on Maester's shelves now," he said. "But stories grow in the telling. Remember that when someone tries to live off theirs." He nodded to them both, then turned away. He had seen enough for now. The ember in the snow burned just as bright up close. Eddard Stark Solar was a smaller, quieter echo of the Great Hall. The walls were hung with simple tapestries depicting wolves chasing stags through snow-laden forests. The colors faded but the threads strong. A single narrow window looked out over the inner ward, its shutters drawn against the cold. The hearth took up most of one wall, fire banked but burning, its light reaching out to lick at the edges of the room. Daemon sat with his back to the fire, letting its warmth soak into his bones. The chair was sturdy, the wood polished by generations of Stark hands. "Your sons handle a blade well for their age," he said, swirling the mulled wine in his cup. The spices were unfamiliar, sharper than the sweet Essos blends he had grown used to, but not unpleasant. "Robb is eager," Eddard said. "Jon more thoughtful." He hesitated almost imperceptibly before the bastard's name. "Boys are quick to learn in the yard. I hope they never need use what they learn there." Daemon hummed. "Hoping has never been much of a shield." "No," Eddard's mouth tightened, "but I have seen enough war to know that peace, however thin, is a treasure not to be squandered." "You fought with Robert Baratheon," Daemon said. It was not a question. "I did." Eddard's eyes flicked to the map on the table, tracing paths only he could see. "At the Trident, at Storm's End, at King's Landing after it was done. Daenerys's brother dead in the river, her father butchered on his throne, her infant kin dashed against walls." Daemon knew the shape of that tale now, from the Shadowbinder's words and his own imaginings. To hear it from the mouth of a man who had been there was something else. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Eddard's gaze sharpened. "Do you ask as a man," he said slowly, "or as some emissary of a house that fell with the Mad King?" Daemon laughed softly. "If I were an emissary, my lord, I am a poor one. No banners, no men, only a tired old sword and a worn-out body." "That is sometimes when emissaries are most dangerous," Eddard said. "When they can slip through cracks no army could cross." Daemon inclined his head in acknowledgement. "I ask as a man who has seen realms torn apart by less than a mad king," he said, "and who wonders whether the pieces were set back together well." Eddard considered that. "I regret that so many died," he said at last. Good men, bad men, fools and cowards and heroes all the same. I regret that a realm had to be bathed in blood to rid it of one man's madness. But would I do differently? He shook his head. No, Aerys Targaryen had to fall. If he had not, half the realm would have burned before he was satisfied. Daemon watched the flicker of flame reflected in the Stark Lord's eyes. You speak like a man who believes madness lies in the blood, he said, that it is a sickness carried from king to king like a cough. I speak like a man who saw wildfire burn men alive, Eddard replied, a roughness threading his voice, and heard a king laugh at their screams. If that is in the blood, better that blood be spilt on a sword than on a city. Daemon sipped his wine, letting the heat spread through his chest. What of the prince? He asked, feigning idle curiosity. Rhaegar. Songs say he was different. Eddard's jaw tightened. Songs say many things, he said. They are not always concerned with the truth. But you are, Daemon said quietly. Eddard's gaze met his. For a moment there was a crack in the Lord's composure, a flicker of something raw beneath. Grief, anger, something more complicated than either. Truth is a hard guest, Eddard said. Once you give it a seat at your table, it eats more than you intended. Daemon set his cup down. I have seen enough courts to know when a man holds something too heavy for his hands alone, he said. You have your peace, Lord Eddard, of a sort. But there is rot beneath it, things unsaid, oaths sworn in blood and broken in silence. The Stark Lord's hand tightened on the stem of his cup. You are presumptuous for a guest, he said. I am observant. Daemon leaned back. You look at your bastard and flinch, though you hide it well. Your lady looks at him and does not hide it at all. Your lawful son tries to bridge the space between them because he does not understand it. He ticked each point off on his fingers. And there is a name that hangs in the air of this castle like smoke. You do not say it, but I see it in the way you glance at your Godswood, your crypts. Lyanna. The word fell into the room like a stone into a still pool. Eddard did not move. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the low crackle of the fire. Then he stood up, slow and deliberate. This hall has given you meat, sire, he said, voice very quiet. And my roof has given you shelter. I will not have Lyanna's name bandied about like a tavern tale. Whatever you think you see, keep it behind your teeth. Daemon rose as well, matching Eddard's height more closely than most men would have. You cannot keep the dead from speaking, Stark, he said. Not forever. Secrets buried with them have a way of clawing back up. Not in my hall, Eddard said. If you have more to say, you will say it where the dead may hear. He turned, gesturing to the door. Come. You wanted to see my Godswood. You will see more than that before the night is out. The Godswood of Winterfell felt older than the castle that encircled it. Walls and towers were men's work. The trees had their own knowledge, their own slow, indifferent life. Snow lay soft upon the ground, muffling sound. The air smelled of earth and sap and something wilder beneath. The heart tree watched them come. Its trunk was thick and gnarled, the bark blanched pale as bone. 1,000 red leaves whispered overhead, stirring in a wind Daemon could not feel. The carved face at the center of the trunk, the old gods given eyes and mouth by some long-dead hand, regarded them with bleeding sap and fixed sorrow. Eddard Stark moved with the surety of long familiarity, stepping around roots half buried in the snow. Daemon followed, his boots leaving prints alongside the older tracks. You keep to the old gods, Daemon said, nodding toward the heart tree. I had heard as much of the north. I did not expect it of you, though. Because I fought for a southern king? Eddard said. Because I bent the knee to a man who burned under a different sky? Because you walk with one foot in duty and one in honor, Daemon replied. Men like that often cling to newer gods. They like rules written down in books with priests to tell them where the lines are. Old gods are less accommodating. He knew something of that, though the gods he had courted in Asshai were older and darker than any carved into living wood. Eddard came to a halt before the heart tree. He planted his torch in the snow, its flame flaring as it found purchase. The light licked up his face, casting deep shadows in the lines there. "The old gods remember," he said quietly. "They do not forgive or bargain or promise. They simply watch. That is enough for me." "And for Lyanna?" Daemon asked. Eddard's shoulders tightened. He turned then, facing Daemon fully, the heart tree looming behind him like a pale, misshapen judge. "You have said that name twice now under my roof," he said. "You will explain yourself, sire, or you will leave it for the snows to bury." Daemon let the silence stretch for a heartbeat. Snowflakes landed on his hair and cloak, melting slowly. "I was not in your wars, Lord Eddard," he said at last. "When Robert Baratheon broke your king on the Trident, I slept in a city of black stone. When you buried your sister, I was wrapped in shadows beneath mountains no Valyrian had ever named. Your grief is not mine." Eddard's jaw clenched. "Then you will take her name from your mouth and— But dragons remember their own." Daemon cut across him, tone sharpening. The torch crackled. "I have seen your sister's face," he went on. "Not here in this place. In books, in songs, in tapestries half-molded in keeps that do not deserve to keep them. Lyanna Stark, the wolf maid, the beauty who caught a prince's eye. He saw it now, half overlaid over Eddard's features. The same straight nose, the same stubborn set to the mouth, softened and sharpened both by youth and gender. He saw, too, the shadow of another face he had known better than any, Rhaenyra's, laughing in Dragonstone's wind. "I have seen Rhaegar Targaryen's face as well," Daemon said. "In paintings, in the words of those who loved and hated him. I have weighed his songs against his foolishness. I have seen where he took your sister and what came of it." Eddard took a step forward, boots crunching in the snow. "You know nothing of what came of it," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Nothing but the stories men like Robert chose to tell." "Your king chose his stories," Daemon acknowledged. "So did your friend. So did my kin when they burned men and called it justice. I have my own." He held Eddard's gaze. "I say this," he went on. "A prince obsessed with prophecy steals away a northern maid. A mad king's son, but not himself a madman, if half of what I have heard is true. He hides her where few can find her. And when she dies, you return from that place with a bastard you claim as your own, whose eyes hold a depth I have seen in Targaryen faces and Stark faces both." Eddard's breath steamed in the air between them. "You overstep," he whispered. "I step where your own blood has already spilled," Daemon said. "You can cover it with snow, Stark, but it is still there. Your Lyanna loved my Rhaegar, or she hated him and he forced her. Either way, she bore him a child. You cannot tell me you buried that child with her." The wind stirred the red leaves overhead, making them whisper like distant, mocking voices. Eddard's hands had tightened into fists at his sides. "Even if what you suggest were true," he said, each word bitten off, "what would you do with that knowledge? Run south to your exiled queen and her dragons? Trade it for a crown? Spill Jon's blood on an altar of your ambition?" Daemon thought of Daenerys in the pyre, flames twining around her like lovers' hands. Thought of Jon Snow in the brazier's vision, standing on the wall and staring into the dark beyond. "I asked once to live long enough to see my house remade," he said. "Not to see it broken into more pieces for men like you to fight over. I would not hand that boy's throat to a girl who thinks herself the only flame left in the world." Eddard blinked, surprise flickering through the anger. "Then what do you want?" he demanded. Daemon exhaled, watching his breath curl. "I want the realm that should have been," he said simply. "One where my kin did not squander dragons like coin in a drunken game. One where prophecy is tempered by sense. One where the wall does not stand alone when whatever moves beyond it comes south." He stepped closer, until their faces were little more than a foot apart. "You have a son who is not your son," he said. "You keep him hidden under your own shame. You let him take the name of Snow when he is no bastard in truth. That may have protected him from Robert once. It will not protect him much longer. not from dragons in the east or dead things in the north. Eddard flinched at the mention of dead things, just enough for Daemon to notice. "You know something of that?" Daemon murmured. "Do not waste my time pretending you do not." For a moment, Eddard looked very old. "Even if I believed you," he said, "even if I admitted what you say, what then? You expect me to hand Jon over to some stranger who walks into my hall with old stories and older eyes? To let you take him south to be a piece in your own game? You mistake me," Daemon said quietly. "I have no love for Southron courts. I have burned in their games before. I mean to go north, not south. To the wall. To see what moves beyond it. To see what your boy is, when he stands where I have seen him stand." The heart tree loomed, its carved eyes bleeding sap. "You would claim him," Eddard said. "Name him Targaryen. Put a dragon where I told the world there was only a wolf." "In time," Daemon conceded. "If he proves worthy of the name. If the world proves worthy of bearing it again." "And if I forbid it?" Eddard asked. Daemon considered him. "Then you will die someday," he said, not unkindly. "And secrets die poorly with their keepers. Better that you guide what comes after than leave it to chance." Eddard closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, something in them had settled. "You will not speak this to Jon," he said. "Not yet. Not unless I am dead, or the need is so dire that honor itself bends before it. Swear it. Swear it by whatever gods you still hold to." Daemon glanced at the heart tree, at the red leaves, the pale bark, the carved, sorrowful eyes. "I have bent my knee to stranger gods than yours," he said. "But I will swear, by fire and blood and whatever stares at us from that trunk. I will not name the boy's parentage to him unless the world leaves us no other choice." Eddard nodded once, sharply. "Then we will go where the dead cannot deny or confirm your suspicions," he said. "To the crypts. If ghosts are to walk, let them walk there." The air in the crypts tasted of dust and old stone. It was not the dry, choking dust of disuse. People came here often enough. Daemon could see the signs in the absence of cobwebs on certain steps, the fresher candle stubs on some of the ledges. But time left its taste regardless. Their torches cast long, wavering shadows on the walls as they descended. The stair was steep and narrow, worn in the center by centuries of Stark feet. Eddard led the way with the unthinking surety of a man who had walked this path more times than he cared to count. Daemon followed. One hand rested lightly on the hilt of the dagger at his belt. At the bottom, the stair opened into a long, low hall. Stone figures sat upon stone thrones to either side, each with a wolf at its feet, each with a sword laid across its lap. The air was cooler here, but not entirely dead. A faint draft moved through the hall, making the torch flames bow and twist. "Your kings," Daemon murmured. "My family," Eddard said. His voice sounded different in the crypts, hollowed out. "They guarded the north when Valyrians still thought dragons would keep them safe forever. There was no boast in it, only fact." Daemon nodded, acknowledging the line. They walked. The faces of the statues changed as they went. Features broadening, narrowing, beards thickening or thinning. Some helms plain, others adorned with antlers or wings or snarling beasts. Each pair of stone eyes seemed to follow them, judging. Daemon felt no particular awe. He had walked through tombs before, some grander, some poorer. He respected the weight of history, but it did not bow him. If anything, it stiffened his spine. These men had thought themselves the center of the world once. Now they were stone. At the far end of the hall, the statues shifted again. The last few were less worn, their features sharper. The dust lay thinner on their shoulders. The dire wolves at their feet seemed almost to bristle still. Eddard stopped before one. She was carved smaller than the others, though still seated, a stone direwolf at her feet like all the rest. Her hair fell around her shoulders in long, wavy locks, pulled back from a face that was both fierce and gentle. Someone had taken care with the set of her mouth, the tilt of her chin. A wreath of stone winter roses lay in her lap, the petals perfectly rendered. Lyanna Stark. Daemon studied her for a long moment, comparing this idealized stone face to the ghost that flickered at the edge of his imagination. He saw hints of Eddard, of the younger girl from tapestries, of the tales sung by half-drunk bards. He thought, too, of Rhaegar, fingers plucking at his harp, crown of blue roses in his hands. "You brought the roses," he said quietly. "Or you had them carved, at least." Eddard's throat worked. "She loved them," he said, "even when there was no summer to give them scent." Daemon stepped closer, lifting his torch to cast more light over the stone. "Did she love him?" he asked. "Did she love Rhaegar?" "That is between her and whatever gods listen to her now," Eddard said. "What matters is that he stole her from us. He set the realm on fire for a crown of flowers." "Robert would say so," Daemon said. "He needed a villain to justify his war. But you," he looked back at Eddard. "You saw them," he said. "In that tower in the south. You saw her face when she spoke his name. Was it hatred? Or something more complicated than your friend could bear to admit?" Eddard's eyes closed briefly. When he opened them, they were bright in the torchlight, the color unreadable. "She was my sister," he said. "I will not explain her heart to a stranger, but I will tell you this. Whatever lay between her and Rhaegar, it cost her everything. Her life, her honor, her good name in the songs and tales. And it gave her him." He did not have to say the name. Daemon straightened slowly. "You speak as if you were there," he said. "In the room when she died. In the blood." "I was." The words came like stones dropping. "I held her hand. I heard her last words. I made her a promise." Daemon's fingers tightened on the torch shaft. "To protect her son," he said. Eddard's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, stark fear flashed across his face, naked as a child's. "To protect him from Robert," Daemon pressed. "From the men who would have killed him for the crime of existing. So you brought him home, called him your bastard. Let the realm think you had soiled your honor in some nameless girl's bed, rather than admit your sister bore a dragon's whelp." The crypt seemed to grow colder. "You talk too much," Eddard whispered. "Someone must," Daemon said. "You have wrapped your family in silence and expected the world not to notice the shape of what it hides. I do not blame you. You did what you had to do. But the world you protected him from has changed. There is a girl across the sea now with 3 dragons hatching on her shoulders. There are dead things stirring beyond your wall. You cannot keep truth buried forever and expect it not to claw its way up when you least desire it." He reached out briefly and touched the cold stone of Lyanna's hand. "I am no friend to Rhaegar's folly," he said, "but I know what it is to see a realm squandered. If there is a chance to forge something better from the ruin, I will take it. Even if it means telling your boy what you could not." "You swore," Eddard said, "in the Godswood. You swore you would not speak unless there was no other choice. And there is choice yet," Daemon said. "I will not tell him now. Not here where he is still more wolf than fire. Let him take the black if he wishes. Let him see the wall. Let him stand where I have seen him stand. Then we will see what kind of man he is." He turned, lifting his torch, letting its light lick over the other statues. Stark faces, all of them. Men who had bent the knee to Aegon the Conqueror and his sisters once, grudgingly. Men who had yet bowed whe. And dragons came because they knew the cost of saying no. "He is my son in all that matters," Eddard said behind him. "I raised him. I taught him. If he is to be taken by anyone's hand, it will not be by some ghost from a dead house." Daemon looked back over his shoulder, letting his age show plainly now, lit by the wavering torchlight. "I am no ghost," he said. "I am what your sister's prince should have been. A man who will not leave the realm to bleed out because he is too afraid of his own blood." The words hung between them, heavy. Eddard's shoulders slumped a fraction. "Go to the wall, then," he said at last. "See what you must. I will give you a letter to my brother Benjen Stark. He is first ranger there. He will keep an eye on you if such a thing can be done. I have never known anyone to truly keep an eye on a dragon, Daemon said, "but I appreciate the sentiment." He let his gaze fall back to Lyanna's statue for a moment longer. "If I can make something of the ruin your generation left," he said softly, almost to himself, "perhaps she will forgive me my presumption." The stone woman did not answer. Only the dripping of unseen water and the soft sigh of air through the crypt replied. The castle slept uneasily. Servants dozed in corners. Guards stamped their feet at their posts. Fires burned low in their grates. Somewhere in the great hall, a drunk laughed too loudly at his own joke and was shushed by a sharper voice. Winterfell breathed. Daemon preferred the night. He moved along the wall walk with the sure-footedness of a man who had walked on narrower paths at greater heights. The stones were slick with a thin sheen of frost. The air cut his lungs, each breath a small wound. Ahead, a figure leaned against the parapet. Jon Snow's cloak was too thin for the hour, patched in spots, the black of it faded by many washings. He had left his gloves somewhere behind, fingers bare against the stone. Ghost sat to one side, tail curled around his paws, red eyes half-lidded. "You will lose your fingers that way," Daemon said quietly as he approached. "The cold takes what you show it." Jon straightened, startled. Ghost lifted his head, a low rumble building in his chest. "I've lost worse things than fingers," Jon said, recovering quickly. "Sire, you are young yet," Daemon said. "Plenty of time to misplace the rest." He came to stand beside the boy, resting his forearms on the parapet. Before them, the night stretched out in layers. The dark smear of the Wolfswood, the faint glimmer of starlight on distant snowfields, the deeper black where the land dipped out of sight. The sky was clear, the stars hard and cold. "You should be in bed," Jon said. "At your age, sire." Daemon huffed a laugh. "At my age, sleep is wasted on the hours too short to dream and too long to die." Jon frowned, not quite sure what to make of that. "You mean to take the black?" Daemon said, changing tack. "You spoke of it in the yard, and your Lord Father spoke of it tonight." "My Lord Father is not glad of it," Jon said. "But he accepts it. There's no place for me here." His tone was neutral, but the words fell heavy. "No place," Daemon echoed. "I saw a place at table for you. At the far end," Jon said bitterly. "Below my sisters, below Bran. Robb sits beside father. I sit near the benches with the household men." "And yet you sit," Daemon said. "There are bastards who would give their lives for a place at any table, much less that one." "That's easy to say if you've never been a bastard," Jon snapped. Daemon turned his head, studying the set of the boy's mouth, the anger held tight behind his teeth. "I have been worse things," he said. "Bastardry at least gives you certainty. You know where you stand. On the wrong side of the sheet. There is honesty in that, however ugly." Jon's lips thinned. "You know much of bastards for a hedge knight." "I know much of men," Daemon said. "Bastards are only men who had the misfortune of being born where the world could not ignore them and would not accept them." He looked out over the dark again. "The wall is not what you think it is," he said after a moment. "You imagine black brothers with honor in their hearts, protecting the realm from wildlings and worse. You see glory in exile." Jon stiffened. "And what do you see?" "Criminals," Daemon said bluntly. "Rapists, thieves. Boys sent there because their fathers did not know what else to do with them. And a few men like Benjen Stark who believe in oaths still. The wall is a graveyard that hasn't realized it is dead yet." Jon's hands curled on the stone. "You would have me stay here then?" he demanded. "Live under Lady Catelyn Stark's gaze, knowing every look says I should not exist? Watch Robb be groomed for lordship while I fetch his cloak and guard his back? I would rather stand my post in a graveyard." Daemon regarded him. "There is fire in you," he said. "You hide it well. You think no one sees. They do. It frightens them." Jon blinked. "Fire. Not the kind you put logs on," Daemon said. "The kind that makes men follow you. The kind that makes you step forward when others step back. You have it, bastard or not." Jon looked away, uncomfortable. "I am no one," he said. "I am Jon Snow. That is all I will ever be." "For now," Daemon said softly. "Names are mutable things. Men remake them, or they are remade by others." Ghost shifted, coming to lean subtly against Jon's leg. The boy's hand dropped automatically to the direwolf's head, burying his fingers in the thick white fur. "What was your name before?" Jon asked suddenly. "Before you decided to be Ser Demian Waters." Daemon smiled without humor. "Do you think that is not my true name?" "I think you do not move like a man born in a village," Jon said. "And you do not speak like a man who grew up with mud on his boots. You fight like no knight in any of old Nan's stories. You look at father as if you've known men like him before, and at me as if you know something I don't." He shook his head, frustrated by his own lack of words. "You are more," he finished lamely. "You give me too much credit," Daemon said. "I am only a man who has lived too long and made too many mistakes. As for my name," he let the thought hang for a heartbeat, then shrugged. "Names matter less than deeds," he said. "Remember that on the wall. No one there will care to call you Snow or Stark if you bleed the same as them." Jon's mouth twisted. "I had hoped to leave names behind," he said. "On the wall, a man is his cloak, his vow, his brothers. That is what my uncle says." "Benjen Stark is an honorable man," Daemon said. "He speaks the truth as he sees it. But the world has a way of making liars of all of us." He pushed himself upright from the parapet. "I go north with you," he said. "If your Lord Father keeps his word and gives me a horse and a letter, we will see, you and I, what the wall truly is, what waits beyond it." Jon stared at him, surprise breaking through the bitterness. "You would take the black as well?" he asked. "Perhaps," Daemon said. "Perhaps I will only stand close enough to smell the ice and decide I prefer warmer graves. We will see." He met the boy's gaze directly. "Whatever comes," he said, "remember this. You are more than the name they give you. There is something in you that is not of this hall, this castle, this snow. It will not let you die quietly on a wall of ice, however much you think you want that now." Jon swallowed. "You speak as though you know my future." "I have seen enough futures to know they do not care what I think," Daemon said. "But I know how embers look, Jon Snow. I know how easily they can be stifled, and how hard they are to kill outright." He turned away then, leaving the boy with his wolf and the cold stars. The guest chamber was modest by the standards of the courts Daemon had once haunted. A narrow bed, a chest for belongings, a washstand with a cracked basin. The walls were bare stone, cold even with the small fire in the hearth. The only luxury was the thickness of the furs piled on the bed, smelling faintly of smoke and old leather. Daemon sat with his back to the wall, feet bare on the rushes. The brazier from Asshai rested on the floor before him, bronze catching the candlelight. It seemed out of place here, a foreign artifact in a room that could have belonged to any Northman of middling rank. The coals within still held their unnatural, steady glow. He had not intended to use it again so soon. Visions were a double-edged sword. They cut away ignorance, yes, but they also sliced fingers that reached too often. Men who stared into fire every night began to see what they wanted, not what was. But he was old and the future pressed close. He needed to see how his chosen pieces moved on the board. "You will take me north," he murmured to the coals. "You will show me how the fire dances at the edge of the world." He drew the dagger lightly across his palm. The skin there was tough with old calluses. It barely bled. He squeezed, coaxing a few drops onto the coals. They drank it with a soft hiss. The flame rose. It did not explode into shape this time. Instead, it unfolded slowly, like a reluctant flower. Colors deepened, smearing and then sharpening. Daenerys Targaryen appeared first. She rode across a sea of grass, the stalks brushing the horse's belly. The sky above her was vast and blue, untroubled by clouds. Her hair, grown back some since the pyre, streamed behind her in a pale banner. At her shoulder, a dragonling clung to the saddle, wings spread for balance, eyes bright. Dothraki rode around her in a loose crescent, braids snapping, rocks gleaming. Some looked at her with awe, some with fear, some with the flat calculation of men weighing a new thing's usefulness. She sat straight, chin lifted, mouth set in a line that was not softness and not cruelty. There was doubt there, and determination, and a hunger that reminded Daemon painfully of another young Targaryen he had once known. "Little queen," he murmured, "you will burn the world to make it love you, if someone does not teach you another way." The fire shifted. Snow whirled into the vision, blotting out the grass. For a heartbeat, fire and frost struggled, images overlapping. Dragon wings beating above white fields, hoofprints filling with blood. Then the cold one. Jon Snow stood in a courtyard, breath steaming. It was not Winterfell's yard. The walls were higher, the buildings rougher, the air colder. Castle black, Daemon guessed, though he had only ever read of it. Men in black cloaks moved around the boy, some training clumsily, others watching. A fat youth swung a sword that glanced off Jon's guard with such force he almost dropped his own. Ghost stood at the edge of the yard, fur ruffled, watching. Jon's movements had sharpened. He moved with the surety of someone who had fought enough times to let his body think for him, even when his mind was tired. There was less boy in his face now, more hard lines. He parried, stepped in, and brought his wooden blade down on his opponent's wrist with controlled force. The other youth yelped, dropping his sword, cradling his hand. "Again," Jon said, voice clipped. Daemon felt an odd swell of something in his chest. Pride, he thought. He had hardly earned the right to it. He had given the boy a few corrections in one northern yard. That was all. The rest was Jon himself. Yet he could not help but feel as if he watched a blade he had once touched being honed further, each stroke bringing it closer to what it might become. "Fire in the snow," he murmured. "And no one around you sees it yet. Good. Let them underestimate you. It will make it easier when you have to cut them down." The brazier's flame crackled, spitting a small spark. Beyond Jon, in the vision, a shadow moved along the wall. A man in black, cloaked in fur, hair streaked with gray, Jon Stark, perhaps, or some other brother. The sense of cold beyond the wall was palpable even in the room's modest heat. It was not just weather, it was presence. Daemon felt it in his bones, the way he had felt the Shadowbinder's magic in Asshai, a pressure at the edges of the world, pushing inward. "You sleep poorly, old foe," he told the unseen dark. "Good, so do I." He let the images blur and fade, drawing his hand back from the brazier. "You cannot win this alone," he told the memory of Lyanna's stone face, of Rhaegar's harp, of Daenerys' dragons, and Jon's stubborn set to his jaw. "Not with one dragon, not with 3, not with 1,000 Starks on 1,000 walls." He flexed his hand, feeling the sting of the cut. "You will need me," he said. "All of you, whether you know it or not." Dawn had not yet whitened the eastern sky. The world was caught in that thin space between night and morning where colors leached away and sound seemed to carry farther than it should. The air was knife cold, the kind that found every unprotected inch of skin and bit down. Daemon moved through the Wolfswood like a ghost, his breath a faint cloud before him. He had left Winterfell by a lesser postern gate, the kind used by hunters and messengers, not lords. The guard there had barely glanced at him. Men came and went from Winterfell often enough. A hedge knight bound for the wall with a letter from the Lord was hardly worth remarking on. Eddard had pressed the folded parchment into his hand in the gray light before dawn. "Jon will see you to the wall," he had said. "And make sure you understand what you are riding into." Daemon had smiled at that. "I have been riding into things I do not fully understand all my life," he had replied. "Why should I start doing otherwise now?" He had not mentioned Caraxes. Some secrets were his alone to keep. He would reveal the dragon when it suited him, not before. Let the North think him a solitary knight until they had to think otherwise. Now, in the shadow of an ancient pine, Caraxes waited. The dragon coiled between the trees, his rust-red scales muted in the dimness. Frost rimed the edges of his wings where snow had settled during the night. His breath steamed in great clouds from his nostrils, melting the snow in circles around him before it refroze. "You sulk," Daemon observed, approaching. "You do not care for being left alone." Caraxes snorted, a plume of warm air washing over him. "I know," Daemon said. "I do not care for it either, but I cannot bring you into every hall like some prize hound. Men fear what they cannot control, and we are far beyond their leashes." He rested his hand on the dragon's neck, feeling the powerful muscles shift beneath the scales. "We go to the wall," he said in High Valyrian. "To the edge, to the place the fire showed me. There is a boy there who does not yet know what he is, and enemies who do not yet know what we are." Caraxes' eye gleamed, catching what little light there was like molten metal. Daemon glanced back over his shoulder. Winterfell's towers were just visible through the trees, dark shapes against the sky. Thin threads of smoke rose from its chimneys. Somewhere within those walls, the Stark family still slept. Or perhaps not. He could well imagine Eddard awake, staring at the ceiling, weighing what he had done by allowing the stranger to go north with his sons, with Lyanna's son. "I will bring him back better than I found him," Daemon said softly, though no one was there to hear it but the dragon and the trees. "Or I will not bring him back at all." He did not mean death by that, though he knew the path they walked might end there regardless. He meant change. Fire remade what it touched. Jon Snow would not return from the wall as he had gone to it, however the tale went. Daemon swung himself up onto Caraxes' back. Age made itself known in the stiffness of his joints, the little catch in his breath as he pulled himself up. But once he was settled into the familiar curve behind the dragon's neck, the weight of years lifted a fraction. Here, at least, he knew how to move. "Fly," he whispered. Caraxes surged upward. The trees fell away beneath them, branches sliding past like black claws. Snow-laden boughs shook, sending down white flurries. For a heartbeat, they were in a tunnel of trunks and needles and cold air, and then they burst above it all. The sky was paling in the east, a faint streak of silver on the horizon. To the north, darkness deepened. Daemon looked that way. Somewhere up there, beyond the patchwork of forest and field and frozen stream, a wall of ice cut the world. Beyond that, something moved. "We are coming," he told the unseen cold. "You have waited long for your dance. So have we." The King's Road ran like a scar through the north. From above, it was a pale line, cut straight through forest and field alike. Snow lay thinner on its beaten earth, churned by hundreds of hooves and boots. Smoke from distant farmsteads and small villages marked where life clung to the hard land. Daemon let Caraxes ride the air high and far to the west of the road. From this height, few eyes could pick them out against the dull sky. A hawk screamed as they passed, banking away. The dragon's wings beat steadily, each stroke a measured effort from old muscles. Below, a knot of riders moved north. Even without the brazier's fire to guide him, Daemon would have known them. The black of their cloaks, the glint of mail, the straight-backed posture of men riding toward duty rather than away from danger. It all spoke clearly. At their head rode a man in heavier furs, his cloak's clasp shaped like a direwolf. Jon Stark, he guessed. The first brother of the Wall who had gone there willingly. Beside him, a younger figure rode slightly hunched in his saddle, as if bracing against more than cold. Jon Snow. Ghost ran alongside the column rather than behind it, paws eating up the ground with silent ease. Every so often, the direwolf would dart ahead, then curve back, as if impatient with the pace of horses. Daemon watched the boy's profile as best he could at this distance. It was like trying to read a face carved into a coin. Yet he fancied he saw the stiffness in the way Jon held himself. The weight of leaving, the stubborn refusal to look back at what he had left. On a low rise some distance behind them, two solitary figures sat their horses. Robb Stark's hair was a copper smear against the snow. Theon Greyjoy's darker head bowed as he said something, his hand gesturing. The distance muffled their words, but Daemon could imagine them easily enough. Jests about bastards and black cloaks. Or perhaps something rougher, kinder, masked in mockery. The way boys said goodbye when they could not bear to make it soft. Jon did not turn. Daemon felt an odd ache between his ribs. He had left places without looking back before. Kingdoms, lovers, brothers, queens. He had told himself each time that to look back was to weaken his own resolve. That those who could not walk away clean did not deserve the power they sought. And yet, watching the boy ride north with his jaw set and his eyes fixed ahead, he felt the hollow of all those severed ties. "You see," he murmured to Caraxes. "He is already walking away from everything he has known. That kind of courage, the kind that looks like stubbornness if you do not know better, is rarer than dragon's blood." The dragon answered with a low rumble that vibrated up through Daemon's legs. "We follow for now," Daemon said. "At a distance. Let him think he goes alone. It will make him pay more attention to what he finds, not who watches." They shadowed the column for hours. When the riders stopped at noon to water their horses at a half-frozen stream, Caraxes circled higher, a faint shadow cast on the snow. The men below glanced up once or twice, shading their eyes, but saw nothing. When they rode again, the sky began to thicken with cloud, the world drawing closer. Snow started to fall in light, lazy flakes, dusting horsebacks and hoods. "How many do you think will still ride that wall in 10 years? Daemon mused aloud. "In 20? How many will fall to cold or wildlings or their own brothers' knives? How many will break and run?" He thought of Jon amidst them, not yet knowing the weight that would be set on his shoulders. "You are going to a place that will take all of you," he murmured toward the invisible boy, "and still want more." The wall did not look real. From a distance, it was a smear of white against the dark, like a cloud fallen to earth. As they drew closer, it resolved into lines and planes, shadows and gleams. Ice reflected what little light the sun could scrape together, turning the whole thing into a vast, dim mirror. Even Caraxes hesitated. The dragon's wings faltered for the space of a heartbeat, an instinctive recoil from the sheer unnaturalness of the sight. He had known stone walls, city walls, castle walls, human things raised with effort and arrogance. This was something else, a wound in the world that had frozen mid-bleed. Daemon felt his own breath catch. He had read of the wall in dusty tomes. 10,000 feet high, some maesters claimed. Others said 300. Men who had seen it could never quite agree on how tall it truly was. They all used different words for the same awe. From where he sat astride Caraxes' neck, high above the King's Road, it seemed both less and more than the stories. Less, because no man-made thing could ever match the wild exaggerations of song. More, because it was not man-made at all. It reared up from the earth in a ragged, sheer face, ice blue and white and gray and every color in between. Striations ran through it, hints of old snowfalls and ancient storms, like the rings in a tree. Near the top, torches burned along a walkway, their flames tiny, fragile things against the mass above and below. At its base crouched Castle Black. It was no true castle by southern standards. Low wooden structures huddled against the wall's immensity. A hall, stables, a smithy, armories. Smoke rose from their chimneys, snatched away by the wind. Men in black cloaks moved ant-like around them, hauling wood, mucking stalls, drilling in the yard. Jon Snow rode through the open gate with Jon Stark at his side, a small figure swallowed by shadow. Daemon held Caraxes back, hovering at a distance where they would be nothing more than a vague unease to any eyes looking up. "Well," he said softly, more to himself than to the dragon, "here it is, the edge of the story." He had always known that if he lived long enough to see dragons fade and rise again, he would also have to face this place. The Shadowbinder had shown him as much when she fed him visions. Fire on ice, blue eyes in the dark, a boy in black standing where no boy should be. The cold up here was different from Winterfell's. It had weight to it, pressing against his skin, seeping into his bones despite the dragon's body heat. Caraxes' breath billowed in great clouds, crystallizing and falling in glittering dust. "You feel it too," Daemon murmured. "This is not just ice, it is purpose." The wall had been built to hold something back, something that had not forgotten, something that, perhaps, had learned as much from its long imprisonment as any dragon's line had learned from exile. Daemon's fingers tightened in the ridge of scales. "I asked to live until my house had risen and fallen," he said under his breath. "I did not ask to live until the world had to decide if it wanted to keep spinning." He smiled, a thin, fierce baring of teeth. "But here we are." Below, Jon Snow dismounted. Men approached, voices rising in greeting or curiosity. Ghost padded at his heel, white fur stark against the trampled snow. The boy looked up once, toward the top of the wall, as if he felt something there. Daemon narrowed his eyes. "Soon," he whispered. "Soon, Jon Snow. Jon, whatever you truly are. We will see what you do when the world asks more of you than any bastard has a right to give." He nudged Caraxes gently. "Come," he said. "It is time we saw this graveyard up close." The dragon banked, beginning a slow, wide circle that would bring them down behind a distant hill, out of sight. From there, Daemon Targaryen would walk the last stretch to Castle Black as he had to Winterfell. On his own 2 feet, cloaked in the illusion of an old knight with nothing left to lose. Inside, fire and ice waited, and the game, at last, would begin in earnest.